Invincible Season 3 has had us screaming at our screens, cheering for the wins, gasping at the gore, wincing through the pain, and yelling, what the actual hell just happened? After 8 wild weeks, this animated masterpiece is wrapped up, leaving us desperate for a season 4, but stuck waiting for what feels like forever. It's your boy Spam Folda, here to keep the Invincible hype alive. Today, we're diving into episodes 5, 6, 7, and 8 of Invincible Season 3, breaking down the jaw-dropping moments, the epic highs, and the frustrating lows that held this season back from the true greatness that it deserved. If you missed my recap of the first half of the season, check it out right here or in the description for more Invincible sauce. So grab your capes, brace for chaos. Let's jump into the second half of the third season of episode 5. The episode opens with Titan basically trying to be a character from that show Power, if you've ever seen it. You know, the whole mob boss with a heart of gold personality trait. As you may or may not recall, a subplot going on this season was Mr. Liu? I'm gonna call him Mr. Liu. Mr. Liu and Titan butting heads earlier in the season. The biggest bit of contention is that Mr. Liu's top dog assassin, Multipal, is currently stuck maximum security supervillain prison. You may be wondering, what makes Multipal a top dog assassin? It's things like multiplying your body over and over and using the mask to break out of prison. Absolutely disgusting. The boys level of disgusting. I like it. I love it. I want some more of it. Once out of the cell, Paul makes a skedaddle for the exit, but he gets this device placed around his neck that completely nerfs his shadow cloning abilities. Back in Mark's crib, him and Eve are making it painfully clear that they're getting it on the regular. At this point, they should just put a sock on the door. With the awkwardness of the super smashing, mounting, and the run-ins with Angstrom not too far in the background, Mark proposes the idea of moving out of his mom's house and him and Eve getting a place together. There's only one problem with their new plan. They're broke college kids, because it appears being super does not pay the bills. Mark better go rob a bank or something. Eve, you better go materialize some gold bricks or something. Eve starts pitching Invincible superhero services as a private contractor, but the prison head isn't biting the idea too much. Mr. Liu is getting pretty pissed that Multipal isn't busted out of prison. He gives Titan a warning to expedite the process, or he warns that something bad could happen to Titan's daughter. Meanwhile, at the headquarters of the de facto team, Rex and Shrinking Ray have a budding relationship going on, and it felt good to have these sweet, heartfelt moments amongst the epic moments in the show. Titan decides to take matters into his own hands to break Multipal out of prison. It doesn't work out too well for him. It turns out that Isotope is actually a double agent and has been working for Mr. Liu the entire time. And from there, all hell breaks loose when Mr. Liu assumes his dragon form, and then he starts ragdolling Titan like he's nothing. American Dragon! Even Mark battle Dragon Mr. Liu as he tries to get Multipal out of prison once and for all. Eve battles Multipal, and she thinks at one point that she's got this man trapped and got him all figured out. But no, this man's too smart for that. In a crazy turn of events, Mr. Liu's physical body is killed by Isotope, who was actually a triple agent the entire time and has been working for Machine Head and Titan. Gotcha, bitch! And by killing his physical body, that means the dragon disappears. The episode ends with Eve and Mark scratching the idea of getting the apartment together and deciding to take things slow, especially with worries about Oliver and concerns with being spied on.
I know you and Eve are having sex.
Episode 6. In episode 6, we get to meet Scott Duvall. So Scott is a guy who has some kind of electrical powers. During Invincible's fight with Omni-Man, Scott loses his sister Jessica and his niece Gretchen. What I really enjoyed about this episode was that the violence that we got to see on the screen kind of reminded me of Batman vs. Superman. We get that one shot of Batman, Bruce Wayne, as he's looking out, seeing all the destruction, and Batman's basically feeling like this damn ant comparison. So as you can imagine, Scott's basically got like a major bone to pick with Invincible. And at first he starts going through all the proper legal channels, the whole law and order thing, just trying to do whatever he can to get a proper resolution for the losses that have occurred. Scott basically finds these devices that he can hook up to his body and it can amplify his electrical ability. And the craziest thing about this was that his wife was completely down for the program and she was in on it. And Scott's getting really into it too. He's in the mirror like doing evil monologues and stuff like that. He's getting dedicated to the role. In other news, Mark and Eve bump into Amber and her new boyfriend Kyle, and you think it'd be completely weird and a little awkward, but in fact it goes pretty well, and by the end of it, it seems like Mark wants to date Kyle instead of Eve. Powerplex starts going nuts in the city, and Shapesmith initially answers the call, but he gets flattened like a pancake pretty quickly. We also get to find out that robots created this device that he can strap around Monster Girl's waist, and this will basically cure her curse, being that every time she transforms, she progressively gets younger and younger until I guess she becomes like a baby. So, you know, the whole like Benjamin Button button thing. So you remember Scott's wife? She hatches this crazy plan to use their kid and her as hostages so they can lure Invincible into a location where Powerplex can get the advantage. Well, this does not end as swimmingly as you think. Powerplex overexerts himself and he completely barbecues his wife. Like, to say his wife is cooked would be an understatement. They can't even be mad. This is Powerplex's fault completely.
You can't keep getting away with it!
Episode 7. The Invincible War is in full swing. Angstrom Levy assembles a team of a few dozen Invincible variants from different dimensions. But you may be asking, how is Angstrom Levy alive after looking like this? Like, does he even have a pulse? These random dudes called the Engineers saved Angstrom's life and got him going from this to this. Angstrom sends the Invincible variants on a tirade on our Mark's dimension. Let it be noted that the Invincible variants are varying strength compared to our Mark because some of these heroes are actually holding their own and actually whooping some ass against these Invincibles. In a less chaotic part of the globe, Rex and Ray are having another hallmark moment, but when the Invincibles start having things pop off on the other side of the city, Rex suits up, kisses his lady, and he hops into action immediately, not knowing what's going to happen next. Even Oliver's joining the fray, trying to save as many lives as possible, and all over the world, heroes are fighting, are throwing hands and trying to beat off these alternate versions of Mark. Mark and Eve are battling a few of the Invincible clones. Business as usual, right? A good back and forth until this happens.
Sit down, bitch. You don't have this.
Eve gets her leg absolutely snapped like a goddamn pretzel.
This is pretzel day.
What the absolute fuck? Why? As you can guess, this sends Mark absolutely spiraling. He gets Eve and then he does the race out of there. Meanwhile, one of the Invincible variants has Bulletproof, Robot, and Monster Girl all cornered. Rex steps in to give everyone some time to leave. In a last-ditch effort, Rex does the unthinkable. And if you've seen Dragon Ball Z or Netero from Hunter x Hunter, you already know where this goes.
And boom goes the dynamite.
That's right, Rex sacrifices himself to save everybody and take down the Invincible variant. Mark's clones come together and they have a sappy Dr. Phil kind of moment. And all in all, it really does show that all the Invincible variants are all there for different reasons. They all have their own motivation. The Invincible variants start getting a little bit antsy. They basically choose to raise a coup against Angstrom.
Don't be stupid! We'll just torture you instead, duh. I could get behind that.
Angstrom says, screw all of that.
Whoa, just take it easy, man.
Then he banishes the alternate Marks to a different dimension. You know, kind of like sweeping dust under an interdimensional rug. Mark and Angstrom have a final confrontation. Mark gets the upper hand since he now understands Angstrom's drones and portal tricks. Mark is so ready to snap Angstrom's neck.
Before he escapes or something!
Do it.
We're really doing it though, aren't we, buddy? Yeah.
But does the dramatic pause BS, you know, where he starts monologuing a little bit, and Angstrom gets away.
Again!
Hey, but this time at least he gave Mark a hand.
Brother, this guy stinks!
It's a joke. It's a joke. At the tail end of the episode, Powerplex and Invincible have a final run-in. He's eventually subdued and contained and brought back into prison.
Scared of the real man. I'll fuck you till you love me.
And while we're at it, can we just talk about Eve's dad, the broomstick that is proverbially stuck up his ass? I could literally go on a rant about how this man's face is constantly stuck, like he smelled something bad, but I digress. And just when you think the fun is over in the episode, and we can finally get a little breathing room for poor Mark as he stands in front of a world that he has inadvertently helped destroy, nope. This freaking buff ass, Colonel Sanders ass Viltrumite comes out of nowhere talking unbelievably greasy.
Stand ready for my arrival, worm.
And his name is Conquest. Episode 8. 8 immediately picks up where episode 7 left off. Mark and Conquest have their first clash, and it immediately hits like a small nuke hits the city. Conquest immediately lets it be known, Marky Mark, you better put up a good fight. Invincible knocks Conquest all the way to outer space. And from there, Conquest just gives Invincible this demented look. And then he blows a blood bubble, forms it into a heart, and then blows it back at Invincible. I think Conquest has a new crush. Mark gets bitch slapped out of the sky, and at this point, he's looking pretty banged up. Conquest is rearranging the city architecture with Mark's body, and it's somewhere around the 6-minute mark that Mark is begging for his life. No. Conquest starts petting Mark like a dog and giving Mark a pep talk. Thanks, coach. And then Oliver comes in with the majestic save with the slide. Conquest starts hitting that brawly run, and then he clotheslines Mark, and then he proceeds to give Mark another tour of the city. You think with all these punches to the face, Conquest will start looking like Hansel Squidward at some point. Cecil's at the Pentagon and he's absolutely losing his mind. You know what's worse than a bunch of strong Viltrumites? One really strong Viltrumite. Eve finally wakes up and like a true ride or die, she's ready to fight for her man.
Do I look like I need to walk?
Conquest does this sick tasty barrel roll and hangs 10 on Mark's body. It was pretty disgusting. Sick work. Conquest then proceeds to slap Ollie so hard his baby teeth get knocked out. Conquest hits Ollie with the
You want a piece of me? You want a piece? No! I want you.
but before that can happen, Mark pops back in and Cecil gets Ollie the hell out of there. And then similar to that train sequence in the first season finale, Conquest proceeds to do this, but this time with way more people. Eve shows up to help Mark and Conquest is like, ooh, I found a new toy. Eve sprouts this super cool exoskeleton armor with her powers, and I will say she puts up a good fight.
What the hell?
But then Conquest slaps the taste out of Eve's mouth, and then he proceeds to wear her abdomen like a baseball mitt. Eve is definitely at death's door.
Police! Police! Help! Police!
There's no doubt about it. Mark loses it and goes berserk, and he punches Conquest's arm so hard that it breaks. This is that pure cinema I was talking about. Mark's doing the absolute most to get an upper hand. He even chomps at Conquest's shoulder just to get the advantage for a second. He mounts Invincible, and he whispers in his ear, tells Mark,
Now, I tell you what, I like you and I want you. Now, we can do this the easy way or we can do it the hard way.
Eve's body starts glowing pink, and she shoots this like radioactive like laser beam at Conquest, and it completely fries his body. I'm telling you, like, this man is like partially cooked. I'm talking cock and balls eviscerated. This gives Mark the perfect opportunity to get the upper hand, and he starts headbutting the absolute hell out of Conquest. He is smushing this man's facial cavity in, and with a final headbutt, Conquest is dead. Or so we think, because then we find out later on that Cecil's keeping his unconscious body confined deep underground until he wakes up and can be interrogated about the Viltrumite Empire. But that's not important right now. For right now, Mark and Eve can finally rest. We get a funeral scene for Rex, and there's even a moment where Invincible laughs, probably low-key because he knows one of Eve's exes is dead now. But hey, what do I know? Eve and Mark get right to smashing like old times, and Mark makes the vow that the next time his family's threatened, he's gonna start killing. And then at the end of the episode, we see Darkblood, who I guess we haven't seen since like the first season. Him and his cherry vanilla fairy demon start talking, and they start saying that they can use Surface Dweller because he's extremely powerful.
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
And there you have it. That's how the episode ends. I don't know what the hell was going on, but I will say that was a banger of a finale. With that all being said and done, I think it's only right that we take a look back at the last 4 episodes of Invincible, but also the season as a whole, and talk about some aspects of the series that are continuing to work, begging for another season on our hands and knees, but also a couple aspects of the show I think could have used a little bit of tweaking and found a little bit lackluster during the season. So let's get into it. Okay, so let's talk about the villains. First up, Angstrom Levy. Angstrom Levi, like Levi jeans. I'm kind of sick of this guy's character. When I really sit back and think about it, his motivations make absolutely no sense to me. Recruiting the Invincibles, particularly the Invincible who killed his wife and his son, it just made no sense to me.
Stop it. Get some help.
I understand that having his character around is a necessary evil because it leads to a lot of epic moments in the show, like the Invincible War that we just got. So I'll take the necessary evil and I'll just see how his character progresses, but I'm not hoping for too much. Powerplex gave a realistic take on all these superhero fights that we always see in like these movies and stuff like that. I was happy to see like actual destruction and there being a conversation around that. When you see buildings falling, there should be people in it, and we never really stop to think about that. And just another ugly example of Invincible's actions inadvertently having consequences. So the Mark variants, they were fun. None of them were distinct to me other than the fact that they had like different colorways. They were kind of like having a new pair of Jordans, you know, or some Nikes. It would have been cool to see more of their personalities individually. They were all just kind of like, I'm really angry and I'm really menacing. There were a few of them that were kind of sympathetic and stuff like that, but the story didn't press too much on it. Personally, instead of Angstrom being a ringleader, I would have preferred if there was one Invincible who stood out from the crowd and was actually the one who was controlling the show and calling the shots. I do like the fact though that they weren't all as strong as Mark, because realistically, if they were all as strong as our Mark, I feel like the earth would have been cooked. And then the man of the hour, the reason I think people will be talking about season 3 for a long time to come, Conquest. This dirty, ruthless, nasty, strong-ass old man. He was probably the most twisted character I think we've seen on the show so far. And just his presence alone elicited every ruthless bone that Mark had in his body. If he's a taste of what's in terms of come with enemies, I am so hyped for this ride to come. What can I say about the animation of the show that hasn't been said already? I could make an Invincible's animation joke, but I feel like that'd be kicking a dead horse so hard. You could probably see the Nike logo imprinted on it. The show's animation is nothing special, especially when I come from a world of anime, but I will say the last couple episodes of the show were something really, really special. And I can also say I feel like this is especially where all the money for the show went. Amazon was probably funneling it all into these last 2 episodes. Look at this one more time and tell me it does not scream peak. The fight scenes felt like they were more than just brainless slugfest, which was one of my other complaints about some of the fight scenes before, and the choreography in them really felt thought out. The punches were visceral. Eve getting her jaw slapped off literally had my lady next to me crying like a baby when she saw it. The fight scenes were well directed, and they made us feel like whatever the hell they want us to make us feel. So let's talk about character development. Mark gets pushed in every single fight scene to do dirtier and dirtier things and cause more harm this season than any season before. The boy is absolutely at this point catching bodies. Mark's really moving down a dark path, and I love the fact that a lot of his decisions are coming back to bite him. So seeing him move down his dark route only makes sense. Eve's character, I was starting to feel kind of meh somewhere around midway through the season, but I will say she redeemed herself in my eyes personally. She held her own in a lot of these fights that she was in, and she came through, and she was the reason that Mark was able to beat Conquest at the end. Her being in peril multiple times in the season definitely gave her that damsel of distress kind of vibe, but she really showed up and showed out and gave us some really, really amazing action set pieces at the end of the season. And what the hell is up with this rainbow goose she's got glowing? My boy Oliver quickly becoming the young goat, especially when I found out he wasn't going to be a murderous piece of shit. I'm excited to see his character grow and maybe meet his dad again at some point. And for another thing, I hope to God they change the goddamn name, because calling him Kid Omni-Man after his father has slaughtered tons of people, it makes no sense to me. Cecil is still scheming and dreaming. What's going to happen next? What's he going to do when and if Conquest wakes up? Cecil's going to do whatever it takes to keep the world safe, even if that means turning everyone into an enemy along the way. Rex, rest in peace to the explosive legend. I hate how we got all this maturity for his character, especially in the later seasons of the show, just for him to die shortly after. What a damn rug pull. You know what? But at least he went out like a G, and that made me think, are we ever going to see Shrinking Ray ever again, or is the character just going to be like whatever thing now? And I was wondering if we were going to get a funeral scene or if they were going to mention Rex, so I was so happy that they had that funeral scene at the end. These are some of the best English voice acting choices I've seen, especially for a long-running show. You got to give it props that a lot of the cast are all like high-profile actors. This season, Aaron Paul as Powerplex was absolutely chef's kiss. Angstrom Levy was voiced by Sterling K. Brown, and I will say his voice fits so well for the character and it's kind of like the manic energy that he brings. And then there's Jeffrey Dean Morgan as that monster Conquest. Jeffrey Dean Morgan's voice gave off this definite like grizzled, war veteran kind of vibe, though for some reason in my head when I was reading the comic books I always imagined that Conquest would have like a British accent for some reason. Oh, you know, Stephen Yeun, he's always coming through and doing this thing. He voiced like 20 plus Invincibles this season and I never got tired of him, so what else can I say? And that last episode when he's crying out for Cecil, I need you, Cecil! Oh my god, the man was putting his all into it. And there you have it, folks. My thoughts on Invincible Season 3. Crazy fight scenes, I mean ridiculous. Animation quality that I think is slowly on the incline. I can see a glimmer of hope that it is getting better. And one of the most compelling stories in adult animation today. I'm giving Season 3 of Invincible 4 out of 5 knuckle bumps. I really gotta ask, what was your favorite episode of Invincible? What was a highlight from the show for you? I'm just gonna be here on YouTube making content and waiting for Season 4. And as always, you can definitely subscribe and like the video. But in the meantime, check your inbox, clear your trash bin. It's been your boy Spam Folda. Fight me in those comments.